Hello and welcome back to the Professor Mobile YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 15 for my Marketing 370 course, Consumer Behavior. Chapter 15 is information search. And I got to tell you, this chapter is kind of a tedious one. It's one I keep picking up and putting back down because I think a lot of the information is pretty easy to understand, but there's a lot of repetition. So I think this is a chapter that you would just have to skim, understand what's in there, and let's just run through these slides real quick, okay? We always start in the same place. So slide 2, here we are in the decision process section on the right-hand side. So we're here and we're going to talk about information search. We talked about problem recognition in the last lecture. So let's move on to slide 4. So once a problem is recognized, okay, relevant information from your long-term memory is used to determine whether a solution is out there. So remember, we've talked about long-term and short-term memory. So what are the characteristics of the potential solution? How do we compare solutions to see what's what? Okay, so that is really what internal search is, right? Internal search, inside your head. So if we can't solve the problem by internal search, then we have to go to external search. And that's product experiences, independent sources, personal sources, so friends and family. And quite frankly, that's what a lot of us do. Ongoing search is another term. And I guess I'll answer what that is with a question. How many of you enjoy seeking information on a specific item? I know for myself, I like looking at makeup trends and various brands of makeup. I mean, I may not be using a lot right now. This is not a makeup YouTube tutorial, but it's something that I'm always interested in. I have an ongoing search for, I would say, beauty products. I know quite a few people that are always looking at maybe laptop equipment, that kind of stuff, to check prices and brands and maybe new characteristics, new things, new faster models, that kind of stuff. So ongoing search is real, and I know you're thinking of one or two people maybe in your family or your friends that's always kind of shopping around for certain things. So consumer decisions require information about the following. We're on slide 5. Appropriate evaluative criteria. So asking yourself questions like, what features do I want in a computer? Or what are the must-haves in my next vehicle purchase? That's what leads you to evaluative criteria, okay? You engage in an internal search in your brain and then follow it up with an external search. That's just kind of how it works. There are many products that you constantly buy just with your internal search. You're not trying to figure out which type of ketchup to get every time you go to the store. At least I hope not. So while searching internally and externally, you're going to look for appropriate alternatives, right? You're going to say to yourself, I may really want an Apple laptop, but I'm going to look at Dell or Lenovo or other brands to see kind of what they offer, price points, and the like. So then you're going to figure out performance of those alternatives on each of the criteria that's important to you. Basic stuff, right? That's the type of information sought. So if we move on, one of the things I think in these slides, there's a lot of flow charts, and they are all in the chapter. So if if you're like, what? If you pause me and play me back and you're still like scratching your head, all of these are in the book. So slide 6, we're talking about basically the information process. And so this just walks you through left to right. So the information process, it starts with 2 questions. What evaluative criteria are needed, and what are the solutions that exist? Simple. These lead to the next question. What is the performance of each solution on each of the criteria? Okay? Then can you make a decision? That's it. If you can, great. If you can't, your information search continues. You kind of go back. And so all this is doing is just mapping out that search for information. As I said, a lot of this is stuff we do that we don't necessarily put definitions and names to. So if we move on to slide 7, again, another flow chart. So this process starts with all the potential alternatives, which include brands and products. So this can consist of the unawareness set, okay? So the unawareness set are the alternatives the customer doesn't know about. So if I am looking for specific skincare, I have an idea of some of the skincare I'm looking for. Maybe I'm looking for Kiehl's or Dr. Jart or certain brands of skincare, but as I do my search, I learn about other products. Or it can be an awareness set, so those are alternatives that I'm aware of already, like the ones I had named. Within that awareness set, there's an inert set, which are backup alternatives. So for me, I tend to like Kiehl's products, but if I don't necessarily find the Kiehl's products I like, or I'm not really doing well with the one of the products, maybe the eye cream or whatever, I might try Dr. Jart because I've had a better experience with those products. So again, it's think about things that you buy regularly. Do you have substitutions that are okay? It can also lead to an evoked set. Now, those of you in Marketing 250 should have heard of that word evoked set. That's a very important term. Evoked sets are alternatives given consideration, and really, they're considered not purchased or they're purchased. So evoked set is like that final list of things you want to buy. So think about your cart, one of your online carts that you have right now. I don't know if you're like me. I spend time kind of whittling it down to that set of products that if I'm going to push purchase, those are the products I have to have. Those aren't the products I kind of want. They're the ones I have to have. And that's basically what an evoked set is. And in 250, we talk about an evoked set as not just the products you remember. I could list probably 30 different brands of skincare. It's those products that you would buy. And that's where that's where good marketers want to be. They want to be in your evoked set. Okay? So if we move on to slide number 8, and right here we're talking about the awareness set decision alternatives for laptop computers. I kind of mentioned this a couple slides back. Again, the evoked set, alternatives given consideration. So you see on the left is the awareness set. It's all of those things. It's Lenovo, it's Apple, it's Toshiba, it's Samsung, HP. Then on the right, if we start at the bottom, inept set is Toshiba. So that's like, I'm never going to buy a Toshiba. The inert set, those are the backup alternatives. So a Dell, an HP, an Acer. The evoked set, those are the ones that I would buy. I would feel comfortable buying. I'm not necessarily going to buy all 3. I'm going to buy one of those 3. But if I'm a good marketer, I want to be one of those 3. If I'm a good marketer, I want to know why My brand may have fallen in the inert set or the inept set. Okay? So if we move on to sources of information on slide 9, very simple, 5 primary sources of info available to consumers. If we start at the bottom, experiential sources, so inspection or trial, trying products. So if we're moving from the bottom up, marketing sources, so sales people, websites, advertising, independent sources, magazines, consumer groups. So my first question of the lecture for you is, what are your independent sources or your marketing sources, your go-to places to learn about some of these, to get your information, to make informed purchases? And I don't mean, those everyday purchases. I mean maybe special purchases. So if you're looking for, if you're a skier and you're looking to buy yourself a ski coat, a good ski coat, or spend some money on skis, or if you need a laptop, like where are you going to get that information? Are you just internally saying, I like Apple and I'm buying Apple, and you don't do any research? Talk to me, okay? Moving on to slide 10. Again with the charts and the flow charts. I obviously didn't put this together, but we'll talk through it real quick. So, as we've said, information sources can be internal or external. They can be actively acquired by past searches or personal experiences, okay? So, things you've learned, experiences you've had with products, or they can be passively acquired by low involvement learning. Low involvement learning is the reason we can sing various advertising jingles. It's the reason I can do the 1-800 whatever for the lawyers in the area. It's the reason we can do a lot of those things. It's low involvement learning. External information sources are actively acquired by independent groups, personal contacts, marketing information. So you kind of see how this flows, okay? So that's slide 10. Moving on to slide 11. So this shows the estimated number of internet users by region. And one of the things that, I guess my question for you is, does this surprise you? So at the top you see Asia has 2 billion estimated number of users on this. Now I did a little digging. This information is from 2018. As of 2019, I could only find like countries. But China alone, okay, China alone has 840 million internet users. India has 706 million internet users. The US comes in third, which is fascinating, at 244 million users. And then guess what comes in fourth? As I cough. It's Brazil. Brazil has 141 million internet users. Does this surprise you? Talk to me. Moving on to slide 12, sources of information. I guess what I'll say here is we already know all of this, right? What was the last thing you searched for online and why? For me, I spent time searching for homeschooling products and supplies. I would gather that many of you are using the internet to try to get stuff, either if you're bored, order certain things, maybe video games, maybe food, supplies, different things like that. So a lot of us are using the internet to survive. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the current pandemic situation we're in, how that affects consumer behavior and how that affects it long term. So this slide on Slide 13 is also on page 543 of the book, just talking about sources of information, the internet search activities. So you can see at the top, 87%, according to this Pew Internet survey, use search engines to find information. I teach a digital marketing course for this reason. I teach about the Google AdWords and Google Analytics, and quite frankly, when do you not Google something? We all use Google. We all ask the internet for help. And so, you know, over the course of the last 15, 20 years, that piece of advertising and data retrieval has changed so much. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, talk to me, and Marketing 320 might be a fun class for you. So, slide 14, if you take a look here, again, another chart. So if we take a look, this the nature of search using online search engines, it's separated into 4 categories: apparel, computer hardware, sports and fitness, and travel. So if you look at them left to right, for apparel, searches were 71.5% generic searches and 27.5% brand only. So that's interesting. I guess if you think about that, there are times I seek out a brand, but if I want to look for something like a black dress, I'm going to look for a black dress. I'm going to want to see what different brands can show me in a black dress. So I guess, you know, just thinking about my own search for information, that kind of makes sense. So walking through, it seems it's very similar, really. Generic seems to win the day, generic search. And I guess it's true if you think about it. We always start with more of a generic search, and then we start to kind of hone it down. Slide 15, do you price shop online? So economic considerations are a major motivator of online search. I price shop online quite often. I can be in a store and kind of whip my phone out to see if I can get a better price on Amazon, or if I can get a better price on that company's website. That's happened as well. So I think a lot of us are really thinking about pricing when we are shopping online. Some stats that were interesting: 94% of online purchases are preceded by online search. Duh. 74% of offline purchases are likely to be preceded by online search. That's interesting. Consumers who pre-search are exposed to online ads spend 41% more in store. Does that sound about right for you? So they're looking online, they're being exposed to maybe sale information or product information online, and then when they're in the store, they're 41% more likely to spend money. Does that sound right? Yeah, it does for me. We're going to skip slide 16, moving on to 17. 3 major strategic issues marketers face regarding the internet's role in information search and decision making. Okay, so how can they drive their info to consumers? How can they drive consumers to their information? So one of the things we used to talk to clients about was you could have the world's best website with all sorts of ads and wonderful products, but if customers don't know that it exists, it's like sitting out in the middle of the desert. So you have to have a good advertising message, and once people are at your website and once people are able to find you, you have to have a real user-friendly, product-focused website. So the other one is how, if at all, can online selling be utilized or integrated with existing channels, and we're going to talk about that in chapter 17. So the question is, how can marketers drive information to consumers? Well, there's a million ways to do this. The next couple pages kind of talk through that. banner ads. They call them banner ads, but they're just regular digital ads. E-blasts. Social media is huge for that. Then they talk about, on the next slide, on slide 19, they talk about behavioral targeting. So anytime you have, like, for example, when we were planning our trip to Disney, we were on the Disney website, we searched a lot of different things, and everything Disney followed me for months leading up to the trip and then after the trip. And of course, that's because of my behavior online. Search engine optimization. Well, that search engine optimization is really fascinating. It's those organic, when you type in plumbers in Syracuse, it's the organic search that falls right below the ads. And quite often we say, well, yeah, those are like the real deal because they're free, and they're not free either. A lot of companies pay agencies and other companies to make sure their websites are good, make sure all their links work and everything, and Google's happy and they get a good Google score, and that is what makes you an SEO star. Offline media, you know what that is. It's print, it's newspaper, it's TV, it's billboards, right? We still use a lot of that media. There's still money spent there. Really, I swear. Slide 20. Sources, we're still in sources of information. So I talked a little bit about SEO, and the book goes into a little more detail regarding websites and website design. And I guess, I'm not gonna read this word for word, but what I want you to think about, and I don't know if I've talked about this in class before, but think about websites, I guess for you, 10 years ago. Like for me, I can remember websites from the 90s. Okay, this is where I would like put some weird 90s music in the background, but so anyway, I remember websites from the 90s. They were rough. They were obnoxious colors and so many links and just so jumbled. And so we've come a real long way, and it's not by accident. Here, I guess I'd say at SUNY Oswego, there's a major called Human-Computer Interaction, HCI. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, but HCI has become a major and a job because we, marketers, companies, needed to find a way for people to be able to use their websites with ease. Because think about it, people of all different generations, different educations, income brackets, cultures, countries are all using the internet. And so for companies to be successful in 2020, even within I'd say the last 5 to 6 years, their websites had to be great. Their websites had to be user-friendly. If they were selling things on their website, their e-commerce had to work 100% of the time. So there's a lot of thought and a lot of work that goes into making websites really work for users. And in turn, we've used a lot of that data to make digital ads just as user-friendly, just as easy to understand. And so human-computer interaction, good Lord, is that marriage between psychology, so our brains, and the internet and websites, coding, and how that all goes together. So I actually worked with a couple folks in my last gig that had their masters in human-computer interaction, and what I would often do is have them review a lot of my clients' websites and just say, hey, these are some of the things, these are like the top 5 things that I'm seeing on your client's website that they need to change. So it's really interesting, and I bring this up because I think for some of you, there are some courses at SUNY Oswego. There's some intro to HTML and coding courses and different things. I'm always trying to think of ways to kind of make yourselves a little different. If that's something you're interested, please reach out to me and we can talk about it further. But human-computer interaction, that's a job, that's a major. You can get your undergrad or you can get your graduate degree in it. And the study of that is why our websites are better, our e-commerce is better. It's why places or websites like Amazon have done so well, okay? So we move on to slide 21. There's a lot on this, and this is just Experian did some research regarding smartphone segments, so you know we can delve into that. I want to talk a little bit about mobile advertising. I actually do remember there was a time when you would go on a website on your phone and it wasn't mobilely optimized, and so you were like doing this and you're trying to make it bigger. And now, I mean, my gosh, if you see that now, you're like, what? So mobile optimization was a really big deal about, I'd say 6 or 7 years ago now. So there's some stats in the book, but you know, some of it's a little old. Mobile advertising should account, okay, so this one's the book. Mobile advertising should account for about 67% of the total U.S. digital ad spend. That was said in 2018. In a study that PwC did, they reported that mobile is expected to account for 70%. 70% now. And wound up accounting for 71% in 2019. So PwC projects that mobile could account for 81% of all digital advertising by 2023. I mean, roughly 95% of U.S. adults have a mobile phone, have some type of phone, okay? 77% of them have a smartphone. So even my baby boomer parents have smartphones that they know how to use. So more questions here for the comments. What do you think will happen with the global pandemic? How will that affect mobile phone advertising? How will that affect the quality of advertising? Just what do you think this pandemic is going to do to our phones? Anyway. And, you know, we can talk through all of these different categories. I mean, I guess some of them that I'll point out, I think the biggest group are the browsers. They're still learning how to use their smartphone. I'd say that biggest group is probably mainly boomers, maybe. I mean, I'm probably being a little, you know, I should be a little nicer with that. But again, I think it's just folks that aren't as technology savvy. I think a lot of us probably fall in the personals where we're very mobile savvy and we love to use our phones. I think a lot of us are, I wouldn't say that I am, but probably a lot of you are hyper connected. You have multiple devices. Maybe you have a strong social media following. I think a lot of you probably have strong Instagram. You take a lot of pictures. I don't follow any of you on purpose, but I know a lot of you follow me. I'm sorry. So let's see. Prodigies are constantly connected, mobile-centric, tech trendsetters. So I think there's a bucket for all of us in these categories. I would definitely say my dad is probably an occasional, which is about 11%. So he uses his phone for voice calls, but also plays games and checks the news and weather. And like right now, he uses his phone to do video chat with my son, right? So Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Marketers are particularly interested in external information search. They just are. Why? Because they get direct access to a customer that way. Internal search is tough. That's what's going on inside your brain. External search is when you're seeking out information, okay? Some products like mustard or gum require little to no external influence. Things like appliances, cars, laptops, those are major purchases that you want to, that you might expect. So thinking about it now, very clinically, you might expect substantial amounts of direct external search prior to purchase. Well, it's interesting, the book kind of talks a little bit about this. Surveys of shopping behavior have shown a significant percentage of all major purchases are made after the consumers only visited one store. Alternative brands tend to increase as the price of an item increases, which that makes sense, right? Like, you're going to possibly look at more stuff if it costs more, like a laptop. You're going to maybe shop around a little bit. But it doesn't increase by much according to the information in the book, according to the survey that was done. So it said online car searches only examine 3 models of cars on average. And it's really funny because I was kind of shocked by that. And then I thought, well, that kind of makes sense. I'm really only looking at a couple models. And I'm pretty sure when you want to buy a car, you kind of have an idea. Okay, I want an SUV and I want it to be either, a Chevy or a Ford. And then you're down to like 2 things or 3 things, right? So anyway, moving on to the next slide. There are four basic types of factors that influence the expected benefit and perceived costs of search, both online and offline. So this is real simple stuff, and you can dive a little deeper in the book. But market characteristics, so that's just the number of alternatives, price range, store distribution, information that's available. Product characteristics are the perceived product differentiation. So that's, what are the features of the product, right? The quality variation. So, there may be a difference in quality from an Acer to a Dell or an HP. Consumer characteristics, well, that affects how you perceive the benefits that you're going to get from those products. The costs, the need to carry out more external search. Situation characteristics, so that's like, we talked a little bit, I think, in the last chapter about gift giving. Think about situations where you need to seek out information, right? A lot of times it could be when there's a problem, so your car dies, you have to make a decision. What are you doing? Are you buying a new car? Are you fixing your car? But you're going to a wedding. You need to at least buy a card and put money in it or bring a gift. So there's situational characteristics that influence what you're going to do for search. We can skip over the next slide and move on to marketing strategies that basically take into account the nature of information search before your purchase. So 2 dimensions, it's the type of decision influences the level of search, and the nature of the, there's that word, evoked set, influences the direction of the search. So the nature of what you normally buy influences the direction of the search. Okay? This really, the next slide kind of talks through that a little bit more. So, of course, there's another chart, because, of course, it's the last slide in this chapter. This matrix suggests the 6 marketing strategies. Okay, there's 6 marketing strategies in here. Maintenance, capture, preference, disrupt, intercept, and acceptance strategies. So these are marketing strategies based on information search patterns. So in the comments, Give me an example of one of these strategies based on information search patterns. So if you've made it this far in this lecture, that could be another really good question that you can answer, kind of an easy one. A lot of those answers are in the book. So that was chapter 15, and chapter 15, not gonna lie, kind of a dry one. But if you think about slide 2 in the consumer decision process, well, we're on that right side, we're in the decision process, and information search is really important. And a lot of us, myself included, have been involved in information search for most of our careers. Working in the marketing field, working in sales, working in customer service. So it's just kind of drilling in and looking at this stuff, I'd say in a more clinical way. So that's all I have for you today. Please comment, like, subscribe. I don't know, I need a better tagline. Anyway, thank you. Be safe, be well, and I'll talk soon. Bye-bye.